Welcome back to Travolting Presents Easy Riders. Hosted by Jeff Sweeney and Stuart Elmore. Covering Night on Earth with special guest William Angelico. What's up, guys?
What's up? Are you ready to spend a night on Earth?
I've almost been preparing for this my entire life with all the nights on Earth I've had.
Will, you look shell-shocked with the opening recording.
I didn't know if I could comment on it. I feel like I've been taking on some sort of science fiction epic in a matter of 20 seconds.
You could absolutely comment on it.
A grand...
Because I'm very, very proud of
Like
this.
the end of 2001 when all the stuff is flashing. That was in my eyes right now when you were doing that.
For the folks at home, I've already explained this too, but now we can just do the intro and keep continuing. We don't have to pause.
Yeah, we don't have to pause and then have a second conversation about if we did the intro right. We just got to do it now.
We just got to do it in one take. We'll do it live!
Though, Stuart, I must confess, part of me was really tempted that we should forego our usual intro and just start this episode by a similar way to this movie and just... just like Tom Waits just grumbling.
What are you talking about? It's the best intro.
Ryder.
So I watched this with my mother and my sister.
Yes.
And I started it, and that is the intro. And my sister Ashley, she didn't know. I don't think she'd ever heard Tom Waits. So she goes, "Why does he sing like that?" And she's like, do people like that? I said, yes, a lot of people like
really,
that.
In fact, really like that.
Don't say that in public, actually, because the people who do like it might say something bad to you.
Yeah.
The people who like it are somewhat aggressive sometimes.
About it. Yeah, they are.
What do you mean it's not?
It's the same guy in Robots where he does the underground, like right?
Stuart, did you just deadass only know Tom Waits from the 2005 animated motion picture Robots? Is that what just happened there?
I'm not going to lie, that is true.
I'll be frank, I have no idea if Tom Waits is the guy in Robots.
I'm pretty sure he is. He has the same kind of voice, I'm pretty sure.
I forgot that movie existed
Right.
for all of eternity until you just mentioned it right now. Yes.
It's a movie that Stuart only knows that movie because Robin Williams is in it.
That's true. That is very true. I will not make apologies.
I went to a science camp in middle school, and they played robots instead of teaching us things.
What did you learn?
Nothing. We watched Robots. Stuart, he is not the voice of the guy in Robots.
Yeah, I'm all the way down to Terry Bradshaw as Broken Arm Bot, and I still don't see him. I feel like he would be billed above Terry Bradshaw.
I am looking at Tom Waits' full filmography. It is not him.
It's not him.
Not him.
Okay, because like...
You, in fact, know nothing from Tom.
No. Wait. Actually...
I'm now down to Randy Jackson as wristwatch number 2.
I mean, you got to start somewhere. Your Rich Watch number 2.
No, it's basically it's like a remix soundtrack by John Powell, but it's a remix of the song Underground by Tom Waits.
Is it?
So it is. There is Tom Waits it is a song by Tom Waits that's put in Robots.
Okay.
Wait, is this stop motion or is this animated?
It's just animated.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
I found a Reddit thread entitled "Why Did Tom Waits License a Song to Robots?" People are like, "Why did he do this?" He's apparently very protective of his IP and doesn't usually license out his music. So everybody's very curious why he gave it to the 2005 animated motion picture Robots.
DreamWorks.
A fair question.
Honestly, we're asking the real stuff here. What Tom's like, the robots, cool actor, I like robots. It's really hard to do his voice for a sustained period of time.
That's why he's so good. He just is that.
Yeah.
I watched Licorice Pizza a few weeks ago, which I've seen before. Paul Thomas Anderson movie. And the Tom Waits part where he just stumbles into a restaurant drunk. He's like, all right, roll camera A, roll camera B. All right. And I can't even do it. I'm like literally emitting bile from my throat as I attempt to do the voice.
Yeah. That is how this movie starts.
Yes, it does start with bird alert. I can't remember what he's singing about.
Yeah.
Something about the being at night on Earth, I believe.
So folks in the audience, you're listening to this episode after we've already released. Help me.
Yeah, the last 2 episodes you listened to were Mermaids and Edward Scissorhands.
Yeah. So thank you by the way for listening to Mermaids, a movie that doesn't. It has a mermaid in it.
Yeah,
kinda.
it has a person dressed as a mermaid,
as we talked about, but it is not indeed about Winona Ryder transforming into a mermaid.
Something
Which I was deeply disappointed.
You were under this impression when you entered.
Yeah. We talked about it.
I must confess, I went into Mermaids, like we said, knowing nothing about the movie, and I truly did actually think it might be about a mermaid. And then I was like, very quickly, I was like, okay, this is not what this movie's about.
No, Jeff.
Instead, I was delighted by it being a kind of a lovely family.
No, see, when I saw the title Mermaids, I thought, oh, this must be a sequel to Mermaid. And this is a sequel where there's like hundreds of them. No, it's the James Cameron thing of like Alien and Aliens. Like it starts with one mermaid and then they come back to the ocean and they find thousands of them have come back.
No, it was the much like the James Cameron thing, except they went into the studio and you got Cher up at the board. And she writes Mermaid, and all the studio execs are looking very respectfully. She writes the S. She puts the dollar signs through it.
And everyone
they all lose their shit
after the dollar sign came.
Yes. That is the apocryphal story of how James Cameron pitched Aliens. He claims that actually happened.
Are you serious?
Yes. That is his story of how he pitched Aliens. Is he wrote Alien on the board, put an S, and then put a dollar sign through it.
Where are the witnesses? I need peer review.
Yeah, I choose to believe it because I think that's funny as hell.
That's great.
But anyway, we mentioned all this last week. We just thank you for listening.
Yeah.
But now we're kind of going into a different direction.
Yes.
This is our first.
This is a big shift in Winona's career.
Yeah.
The beginnings of it. This is the end of what we're considering like Winona's first era.
And I think it's an appropriate end.
Because she takes a 2-year break after this movie.
Yeah.
And comes back reestablished as a adult actor.
Bram Stoker's Dracula.
Yes.
Directed by...
She takes a very deliberate 2-year break after this.
Yeah. Coppola did
Yes.
Dracula.
Wait, 2-year break after
Night on Earth.
Night on Earth. Okay.
Yeah.
Because basically, as we know, I've been reading the Winona Ryder biography as we go through these movies and kind of matching to the time periods. So this movie comes about after she finishes Mermaids and Edward Scissorhands and finishes the ill-fated run of not being in The Godfather 3.
Oh, man.
Which I'm kind of, I talked a little bit on Mermaids about it, but I'm more or less going to leave the bulk of that story until we get to Bram Stoker's Dracula because it just makes more sense. It's another Coppola movie.
Right.
But basically, after, she's deeply sick during the entire production of Mermaids. Just very ill, very exhausted, overworked. And she, basically collapses filming Godfather 3 and has to return to the U.S. and just can't make the movie. After, a bit of rest, she comes and films Edward Scissorhands, even though that came out earlier. And then it's just like, all right, I'm done playing like rebellious teenagers. I'm done with that era. I'm done being like the it girl. I want to pursue like more dramatic, interesting work.
Yeah.
And so who can I start? Like, where do I reestablish? I told her agents, no more rebellious teen roles. Only send me stuff that's like serious, respectable, like adult actor work. And one of her friends, whose name I forget, was like, it was not someone notable, was like, you should reach out to Jim Jarmusch. He's putting together a movie. He might be interested in having you in it. And she's like, well, that's weird if I cold call a director, but I'm just going to reach out to him and see what happens. A lunch date spawned out of it. They met up, and Jarmusch was like, yeah, I think you'd be great for this like anthology film I'm putting together. Only be like 2 weeks of work. And she's like, all right, I'm in.
What's the role?
What's the role? And he's like, well, I actually wrote it for a guy, but I'll rewrite it for you if you're interested. And she says yes, and that's basically the story of how she gets into Night on Earth. Is it's like the first role where she's like, I'm only pursuing adult work with interesting directors. Mm. Even though at the end of the day, she does basically end up playing a rebellious teen.
I was going to say, like, to where the other shoe drops is like, what's the role? It's like you're a rebellious cab driver, a young adult.
She does basically end up playing a like, it's at least like, I guess to her, a slightly more interesting director in a more adult movie. Mm-hmm. So it's like kind of a pinky toe in her promise to herself of not playing rebellious teens anymore.
Yeah, sure.
The content too really lends itself to that sentiment that she's trying to take the agency as an actor, and this character totally is doing that. He's like, I got this stuff set up for me.
Yeah.
It's really interesting though that is the one. I did not know that.
Yeah.
That she makes that decision to.
Because to build off of what Will's saying is, like, the whole point of this character is, like, she's being told, like, hey, there's this easy path for you that we can lay out. And she's like, no, I'm going to do my own thing, this thing that I want to do, and just pursue that. Even if it's not as glitz and glamoury, it's what I'm going to do, and I believe it will, serve me well, and I'll stay the course.
Well, and also to your point, Will, when you mentioned, like, it's also a reflection of the content that she's taking. This is an anthology film, and she's never done an anthology film before.
Right.
She's in the first, like, of the 5 stories are being told, she's in the first one, which I think they're all, like, roughly about, what, like 20, 30 minutes
20,
a pop?
30, yes.
Yeah, so she's in, and I bet you, like, I don't know if there is, like, a true, like, billing of this movie, but I imagine she's probably top billed.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
She is.
Yes.
Yeah. So, and that, I think, takes, at least in my personal opinion, an adult mature decision to be like, you know what, I'm going to take a movie where I'm in the first 20 minutes and then I'm not in it.
Yeah.
And like, and it's not even that I, like, the spirit of my character remains or whatever, like a Mahershala Ali Moonlight situation. No. It's not like that. It's that I just have one story to tell, and then after that it's done. And I think that takes a different mindset of decision making as an actor.
100%.
Yeah.
Especially for an anthology film, because you're setting the tone for the whole film.
Yeah.
Even though, like you said, it's not that situation where your spirit's alive, but
Right.
You feel that as that setup of, like, the cab driver and the passenger, and the driver has the power in that situation.
Yeah. Right.
And
yeah. And so we covered a movie,
$20.
Well, I was $20 the obvious one. Travolta didn't do an anthology, I don't think.
I think he did. No, I don't think he did.
Sorry, the 70 movies we covered.
I'm
going through the Rolodex.
all the various Travoltas.
Yeah, I'm going through the Rolodex, and I'm failing to find an anthology movie there.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, but the obvious one.
I should do an anthology film.
The obvious one for Fraser is $20.
Yeah.
Which just real quick for the audience.
$20, the most film school premise of a movie to ever exist.
The most film school.
What if we track a $20 bill over the course of a week and see who it goes to?
Have you seen $20? Will?
I have not.
Yeah, literally what Jeff said.
I don't like hate it. It's like it's like an okay movie.
It's an okay movie. It's a soft. What would we give it? A 6 out of 10?
I think it was like a gentleman's 6.
A gentleman's 6 out of 10. Yeah. Yeah. But and that one's a little bit different because it's not like 5 separate like pieces.
Yeah.
It's like there's through lines that we return to certain storylines. We get resolutions to some people's stories, all these things. Whereas this is just
is essentially 5 short films.
This is
with
5
the
short
same
films.
premise.
Yeah, really is.
Which it's like Jarmusch. I found an article about like the production of this movie, so I'm just kind of skimming it right now. But I like the idea here is that this is not trying to be anything more than it is, if that makes sense. Like, this isn't trying to be some grand piece about, like, the interconnectedness of humanity. It's 5 stories about cab drivers set over the course of one night. Some are humorous, some are a bit more serious, but it's just about the weird things that happen during a night on Earth.
All over the world.
All over the world.
Yes.
And, like, there is that, like, very subtle subtext of, like, well, everybody's going through the same kind of stuff, but it's never, made textual. It's just like you're supposed to just kind of get that off the picture.
Mm-hmm.
The movie's not trying to be a big, what's the word? Like a thematic piece.
Right.
It's not in your face text. It's like very, very deeply embedded in the subtext of it. But real quick, Jeff, did you like this movie?
I did like this movie.
Did you like this movie?
I did.
I also like this movie. And I think I like it because like you watch it not so much you're looking for something necessarily to.
Yeah.
This is a vibes movie.
Yeah, this
Totally.
It's a vibes movie, and it's like one of those movies about those encounters you have with a person who you will never see again that kind of stick with you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like we all have those stories of 100%. Like, I ran into this guy at a bar and he helped me out, or I was talking to this guy on the street and we had a really nice conversation, and then you'll never see them again.
Yeah.
We all have those stories, and this movie kind of plays off of that, the fun of that.
Yeah. I think it's
people in motion.
It's a great vibes movie to watch when you're like, well, we're recording this and we're having like a Siberia moment in Chicago right now where it's currently -7 degrees outside.
Feels like -20.
Feels like -20. This is a perfect movie to watch like on a very, very, very cold night when you have nothing to do but.
I was just at midnight last night. I feel like I was the only person in the world.
Right?
I felt like it was me and the two people in the cab and no one else was alive.
Dead ass though, to that point. Yeah. If there's any best time to watch this movie, it's in the middle of the night. Absolutely.
Yes. Definitely a night movie.
There's a really fun like genre of movies that this would fit into where it is like the late at night movie. Mm-hmm. Where so much of the like experience of watching the movie is like you feel like you're the only person awake in the world right now watching this movie.
Yeah.
Like Eyes Wide Shut, huge. Yeah. Like watching Eyes Wide Shut like 2 p.m. Look at the lights on.
No, it doesn't work.
Doesn't hit.
You have cars in the background on your street.
It doesn't hit, but when you feel like you're Tom Cruise in that movie, just like you're the only person who's awake right now except for the cultists, and it works on you.
Yeah. Yes.
Or like absolutely. Most horror movies, Halloween.
Yeah.
These are all movies that work on you in that way, and just not in the same way in the middle of the day. And this is an excellent example of it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
What if you're seeing it in the theater in the middle of the day?
I think that's fine. That's fine.
I just that experience of being in like a completely darkened area with only you in the movie.
I think movie theaters kind of get like carte blanche for any time of the day. Like you can see any movie any time of the day in a movie theater because the conditions are optimal.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's not unless like Beyonce is playing in the theater next to you and you're trying to watch a retrospective animated motion picture by an 82-year-old grand artist.
It's like, imagine watching this with...
In case you're curious, this happened exactly to me.
You imagine like watching this and then theater next door is playing Avengers Endgame, so you're just seeing like a cab driver in the background, you're
No, I went to go see The Boy and the Heron, Hayao Miyazaki's new movie.
Yeah.
It's like a lovely, quiet, like introspective movie. And the whole fucking time, the screen is literally shaking
from Renaissance
as Beyonce in the theater next door to me. It was crazy. I kept seeing all those jokes by people being like, "Yeah, me trying to watch Killers of the Flower Moon, Taylor Swift playing the story." It actually happened to me.
That was something I was worried about when I went to see Killers.
Was it Eras Tour playing next door?
It was.
Wow,
but it was fine.
The cultists weren't dancing like Midsummer. I'm sorry, but Swifties, like, you can't see that video and not think.
I will rescind names, but we do have a coworker who truly believes that Taylor Swift has satanic messages embedded into her movie, and that it was actually inspiring people to do satanic acts.
We got to talk off mic.
We'll talk off mic about this, but this is a real thing.
I have not heard this. I also saw the Eras movie, and I did not get any
Are you not satanic yet?
No. Or I'm just covering my ass right now.
You're the coworker.
There's definitely no satanic message in Eras Tour.
Yeah.
Definitely not. So a little about this movie, which is called Night on Earth now, but was not always called Night on Earth. This movie was originally made under the extremely marketable and normal title Los Angeles, New York, Paris, Paris, Rome, Helsinki. That was the full name of the movie. And George Bush was like, "Yeah, we can put this out in the theater."
Well,
and everyone's like, "You cannot put that movie out in the theater.
People will be choking left and right trying to say it.
The words would not fit on
all
like,
lowercase.
the fucking banister."
Yeah. It's supposed to be all lowercase too, wasn't it? Like all one word.
Yeah.
But like also Night on Earth, I'm thinking like, why don't you just call like The Cab or like Taxi or something like that? Like, I don't know. Like, because I also think like Night on Earth, it's like it's so broad enough that like it could mean almost any type of anthology story structure, but it's all in a cab. So, but they don't incorporate that into the title whatsoever. It's definitely a decision that they made of like, we're not going to title this after the fact that it's all taking place in a cab. We're not going to do that, but I don't know why. Maybe they're like, we don't want to put it hand over fist that all 5 of these stories are in a cab. I don't know.
Yeah. So Night on Earth is a much better title than
I
think we can all agree.
Positive.
Yeah. What they were going to do.
Yeah. I'm not.
Is there anything in her biography about this step, like Night on Earth, or?
I'm reading this New York Times article from 1996 about the production of this movie. Just kind of, which I hadn't found prior, but just some of the fun, tools that had to go into making it. This movie, ultra low budget, which is cool by the fact that it does film in all 5 of these cities.
Yeah.
It's not like they just, faked New York or, LA or anything. The money that this movie did raise with its, very tiny budget, all went into just like travel costs for like the small crew that made the movie.
That has small footprint.
Yes.
Clearly. Yeah.
Extremely small. They basically, it sounds like the entire crew was just like a tow vehicle. They had 2 cars and then like few camera guys, a gaffer, and Jarmusch and the actors.
Wow.
They didn't have lockups. They didn't lock up the roads.
Yeah.
They just towed the car through live traffic and just did it.
And there's some stunts. They had some stunt people.
Yeah,
with
there's
them.
a few little stunts.
Yeah. I only know that because there's
No,
one
they actually
particular.
killed those people.
Well, there's an interesting stunt story that we'll get to when we get to it, but it's in the Rome bit, but we'll talk about that later. I like the indie nature of this movie too, but there's one bit in the Rome piece where the guy who's wearing sunglasses, you can see a reflection of
Roberto Benigni.
You can see a reflection of like a silk frame
Yeah.
that they've like obviously rigged on the tow rig or whatever. Like you can. So
It's further. It sounds like their lighting setup. I think this is very fun. Is that this is one of the earlier movies that used like they essentially had
it's like Instacart, right?
He didn't want continuous light sources, so they rigged up dimmer board to the tow vehicle, and then just like had lights essentially on the tow vehicle that would flicker for the passing street lamps and whatever they needed inside.
I didn't know about that.
Like they
piece of
didn't.
it, that it was like a
They essentially
dimmer
didn't light
board.
the inside the car. They only lit the outside of the car to kind of create that sense of authenticity,
I like that. That's so cool.
which is really fun. I
yeah,
think.
yeah, that's great.
And that's where so much I find fascinating in this movie is ostensibly when you make a 2-hour movie, 2-hour and 8-minute movie set inside of a taxi cab, even if it is 5 taxi cabs. At the end of the day, that's 2 hours in like the same environment.
Yeah.
You're not really mixing it up. You can you can look through the front windshield, you can look through the side windshield. That's basically all you got.
Yeah.
But Jarmusch continually finds new ways to make this taxicab feel as large as the biggest set ever constructed.
Yeah.
This movie, as small and focused as it is, feels bigger than half of the blockbusters that are made nowadays. Like if you understand the entire world that these characters live in, and you understand all of their struggles, you understand the world outside of the taxi cab that they all hail from.
Yeah.
Hail from. I thought that was a good joke.
That's good. That's good. That's good. That's really good.
And you even more so understand like the entire environment. Like this feels like there's power dynamics being played with inside of the car. There's these like emotional weights that are just transitioning between the front and the back seat. I just think that there's so much fun, smart filmography or filmmaking going on here to make this essentially very small movie feel as big as like a superhero movie.
Yeah.
And so much of that goes down to Jarmusch. It goes down to his crew. But even more so, I think it goes down to the performances.
Yeah.
All the actors, many of them, fairly notable, are
Giancarlo Esposito.
Yeah. Helmut, who is played by an actual guy named Helmut. I guess they were just like, can't beat that.
Well, some of these guys, like I don't know many of them. Like besides Winona Ryder, many of these actors are not really well known, at least from what I understand, even from the time period. And
each section basically has like one notable person.
Yeah.
Except for Helsinki.
Well, no, Rosie Perez, she...
was she in the... which bit is she
her
in?
and Giancarlo Esposito, she's in the back. She's the
She's
sister-in-law.
Parisian? No. Sorry.
Yes.
Yeah,
Sister-in-law in New York.
She has weirdly just been nominated for an Oscar when she does this.
Rosie Perez?
Yeah.
Oh,
She's
wow.
just been
That's
nominated
great.
for Fearless, and then she kind of does like this... Actually, no, Fearless is after this. My apologies.
Okay.
This is very early.
Because this is coming off of Do the Right Thing.
Yes, this is right after Do the Right Thing.
Was totally slept on, as probably the best movie of that year. So I don't know. They're big at this time.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah. everybody just felt so real to me.
They did feel extremely authentic.
Yeah. Helsinki and
Helsinki is the only one where none. I mean, these guys are they're all actual Finnish actors.
Oh yeah.
So you give them the credit for that.
Yes.
But they aren't like, Roberto Benigni is, known outside of Italy. Giancarlo Esposito, Rosie Perez, Winona Ryder, Gina Rowlands. These are all notable people. Mm-hmm. So you have to pass that along.
Yeah.
Have you guys seen Locke?
No.
The Tom Hardy movie?
I have not seen it.
Okay.
It's all in the car.
So yeah, it's a 90-minute movie of Tom Hardy in a car, driving to the hospital to where his wife, I believe, is. It's been a few years since I've seen it. But basically, it's similar to this movie. It's such a big movie that's so contained. He's only on a highway the entire movie. He never gets off the highway. It's not like he's driving down crazy roads and you're getting all these establishing shots. You were only inside the car with Tom Hardy.
All 90 minutes.
All 90 minutes.
Okay.
As he drives to the hospital and tries to keep his life from falling apart on his 90-minute drive.
Is he doing this by cell phone calls?
Yeah, just all cell phone calls. You never cut away to someone.
Right.
You never see them. It's like Tom Holland is voicing his son. There's some notable names on the other end of the phone line. But it's just Tom Hardy's just on the phone. He's I'm gonna call my wife. And he calls his wife and is talking about all the drama that's going on in their family and keeping, he's on the verge of a divorce and everything's about to collapse. Then he has to hang up, call his business manufacturer because they've lost 20,000 pounds of concrete. He's got to get the concrete there and he can't get to the place with the concrete. So much of this movie is about concrete. It's crazy, but also it's great. There's this monologue where it just goes right into Tom Hardy's face and he's my concrete will build emblems to the sky and towers that tower over the likes of men lesser than me. And he's talking about how his concrete is going to raise up the world and he will be above everyone else on his concrete pedestals.
Okay.
You should watch this movie. It's crazy.
You've sold me.
Yeah. And it is really impressive what Tom Hardy's able to do in transfixing you for that length of time.
Mm-hmm.
I would have thought we would have gotten more movies like that in the COVID era.
I kind of think there's only so much only so many times you can do the guy in car movie.
Or just in a room or in an office or I don't know.
Well, Stuart, you're disrespecting Locked Down, everyone's favorite 2021 Doug Liman motion picture, Locked Down.
Yeah.
A movie he filmed in quarantine, and you can tell.
Yeah, can definitely tell. Is there any more
We kind of
Yeah, I think we kind of bounced around a bit between it all.
Yeah.
But I think we can just start talking about the vignettes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The first one's Winona Ryder.
You jump right in with Winona and Gina Rowlands.
Gina Rowlands, yeah.
In a taxi cab
I
leaving
believe
LAX.
it's Jenna.
Is it Jenna?
Yes.
Okay, Jenna.
I had this discussion when I was watching this movie to try and figure this out. I believe it's Jenna Rowlands.
I'm going to the Wikipedia where they got the...
Yeah. Let's settle this.
Where they got the little,
The talker?
They do not have the talker, but they do have this utterly incomprehensible...
The hell is that?
I don't know.
That's a zing.
I'm guessing that's supposed to be Jen. I think that is Jenna.
Because if it's an upside down
3,
I thought the upside down E is the E. So it would
Yeah.
be Jenna, but now they've inserted a number backwards.
Yeah.
And I am very confused.
I'm guessing that the D is a D. The 3, I think, is supposed to be a J. Jenna.
Okay.
I think that's the idea here.
Good.
Godspeed to whoever writes these Wikipedia pronunciations.
Yeah.
They just have a different keyboard.
There is no one I have more respect for than the Wikipedia editors. Those guys are out there grinding 24/7
Yes.
for free.
Yes. Just playing goalie, batting stuff away.
Just knocking out shit that doesn't exist. Knocking out guys who are going on to the Ben Affleck page
They
and
changed
saying,
it to Gina again.
they fucked around. But no, we first thing we see is Winona as a cab driver. She's a chain smoking, tough as nails
Mechanic.
wannabe mechanic.
Yeah.
Currently cab driver.
And
there's
Corky.
Yeah, and the first thing I think about this, and she does kind of prove me wrong, is I'm this has big, film school, young person playing older energy. Is the first thing I think here.
Yeah.
Where I'm just oh, she's supposed to be playing an older character, but they just cast her.
Yeah.
Like, you know, when you're in film school and there's like it's like the 40-year-old dad, but like 23-year-old acting student walks in, like
with a sweater vest and
yeah,
glasses.
He's like, all right, son. And she was giving me that, and then increasingly I started realizing, like, oh, that's kind of the point here, is that we're playing with this expectation that she's not what you'd expect. Like your fast talking cabbie to be. And that's part of the joke, is that she really doesn't fit the mold, but she's decided this is what I want to be. Mm-hmm. Like, the path is even laid out for her to become an actress later. And she's like, nah, I'm just going to keep doing this.
And Jenna, so as this is picking up with Winona Ryder's Corky is...
Corky, yes.
Yeah.
Not to be confused with Dinky, who she recently played in.
Not to be confused with Dinky, yeah. She's just parked her cab after a fair, I'm pretty sure.
Yes.
Like, she just drops some folks off and she gets on the phone to talk.
Yeah. She parks outside of LAX and she goes inside to use the payphone.
Yeah. And then Jenna Rowlands.
Gina.
Or Gina.
Yeah, we
decided.
Oh, did we?
Jenna.
Oh,
I thought
my
it was
God.
Jenna.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
The Wikipedia police are...
Yeah, they are on their way.
Freeze.
They're going to arrest me. Haul me out. Throw me to the dogs.
So Jenna is getting off a plane, and she's on the phone with some guy.
Sinclair. This guy named Sinclair.
And
it was like the fucking fanciest ass
the
name.
The dialogue gives us that she is like a casting agent, and she's just been coming back from auditioning a number of different girls and women for a part in a movie.
Yeah, and they can't find the actress.
Right, because the director is very picky, wants someone specific, mostly just younger, but then that they're not going to be experienced.
The director's very picky, and they keep changing the role.
Yeah.
Is now they're like, she said, young and innocent, but with the strength of a paratrooper. Mm-hmm. Is the exact description for this character.
Yeah.
And the casting agent's like, we can't find anyone. I'll just have to keep looking.
Yeah.
So she, gets her bag at baggage claim, makes her way to the front, and sees a cab.
Yeah, well, they get off the phone at like the exact same time.
Oh, yeah, they have one of those like
kind of like a twist of fate meeting almost. She's like, "You need a ride?" I'm like, yeah. It's like, all right, well, come with me. And so then Winona helps get her bags in the car.
Yeah.
And what I like immediately is, I don't know. I've seen a lot of movies where in like it's not like in particular cabbie nature, but in other fish out of water, like meeting each other, kind of.
Yeah.
That sort of like disagreement in their behaviors.
Yeah.
Whereas like Jenna almost is kind of more like whenever she's like on the phone and Winona's like playing loud music or smoking too much, it's kind of more of a studying way. It's like, hey, like, you smoke a little too much or whatever. I don't know. I like that it didn't go straight to like the Karen crankiness of it.
It's the beginning is like there is a kind of culture clash.
Yeah.
But it's never malicious. Like,
yeah.
Corky is never trying to upset Jenna. Corky is just living her life the way she wants to live it.
And Jenna's not like disapproving of Corky's lifestyle either. Yeah, that's
because
she's more like studying it.
Because they get in the car, and each section of this movie is like roughly 20 to 25 minutes. Some are longer than others.
Yeah.
New York, I think, is the longest, probably.
Yeah, I would say so.
That's funny. Just looking at the model of the car. It's a Caprice.
Yeah.
I did love how the car, it was like so beat to shit.
I almost couldn't tell it was a cab.
No, right.
Yeah.
Because it is like so matted and faded.
Yeah.
But kudos to them for they really made the production value stretch in that small space.
Exactly.
And I think that just adds a lot to the character of Corky too. It's
her cab.
Yeah, because like
she doesn't have a stereo in her car. She has a stereo in her front
seat. Yeah, she has like a boombox. And, so inherently you'd think like, older cab is like with an older cabbie. But I like that it's with the young cabbie because it starts, you start pondering the questions of like, well, how does she have this car? It's like, this is probably the best one she could afford.
Yeah.
The best one she could pay the rent for. Like she can't do the fancier cabs.
Right.
This is just what she has to live with. But she's content with that, and she has found her own systems to make everything work. She has the boombox. She has all her stuff in the center console. She has the cigarettes like on the sun visor.
And that's the thematic motif that gets duplicated throughout multiple segments is cabbie lighting cigarettes for their...
Yes, all of them like have the cigarette light.
Almost every single one. I think except for the New York. And I don't think they smoke cigarettes in the New York one.
I think...
Maybe Giancarlo does, but I don't think Helmut does.
Helmut.
I don't think he does.
He does?
I don't think he does.
I don't think he does.
I think New York's the only one.
And then Helsinki, I know they do.
Helmut.
Helmut.
Pretty good.
It's like calling him lampshade. It's a good bit. And so that's just like a thematic motif throughout. Like it's what I like about that particular motif, just to spend an extra 30 seconds talking about it, is we don't have that really anymore.
Yeah, it's not you get in an Uber and you're like, light me up, chief.
Yeah. You know, it was interesting. I last night, the last movie I watched before going to bed last night was Mother. And
crazy thing to do.
Yeah, I know. No, I was just in the mood, religious existentialism. And when fucking first guy that shows up in the place, not Pete Weir, but
Ed Harris.
Ed Harris. I don't know why I keep getting him in. They don't even look alike.
Yeah.
I don't know. Ed Harris, he lights a cigarette, and Jennifer Lawrence like, hey, can you please take that outside? And that he duplicates that throughout the movie of him lighting cigarettes. Like, oh, don't worry, I'm going to go outside. You know, like we just don't have like in today's modern 2024 world, like smoking is very much just like
it's not a thing.
It's not a thing to do. Like
it's like
really
you
at all.
Encounter it outside the front door, maybe.
Yeah, that's like all where you see like cigarettes, and this is definitely like a time capsule piece of like like it's very commonplace.
It used to be like a major social source of social interaction.
Yeah,
like a source of bonding.
Yeah, we don't just send. Now we just send Instagram and TikToks to everybody. And back then it was like
cigarette smokers are our last true socialists in the world.
Yeah,
they all contribute to the collective pot of passing cigarettes under the promise that one day one will be passed to them.
Exactly.
Yeah, and sharing lighters and all that stuff. Yeah.
Our last true.
It's a very it's a very time capsule-y thing that I think is intentional. That it's an unspoken rule. Like, you get in, your cabbie lights up, and if you're trying to light up, you can probably bum one maybe from your cabbie or give your cabbie one and share a lighter. I don't know. There's just a little thing in there it's duplicated often enough that it was definitely intentional.
And I like that for this first section because Winona's just chain smoking. And I like that after Gina Rollins gets off her first phone call, she pulls out a cigarette. And it's like that's the moment of like they're starting to understand each other.
Yeah.
It's like Jenna is revealing like I'm not as uptight as I seem to be.
Yeah. Right, exactly. Nowadays you don't get those scenes nowadays. Nowadays it'd be like I take a hit from my vape in the front seat and be like, yo, can I get a hit of that? And I pass my vape to the guy in the back seat.
I like all those memes of the Doctor Who guy going like this, and it's like white people asking for your vape. Be like,
I'm laughing a bit too hard at that joke. Nicotine addict you're talking. Oh my god.
Anyways,
that's good. That's good.
But it's like the reveal that Jenna's not as uptight as Winona previously thought, and that Winona is not as distant as she thought, because she's very interested in what Jenna's doing with her life.
Yeah.
And she's like, so tell me about this business you're working in.
Yeah.
And they just kind of talk for a bit about like the process of casting and working in movies.
Yeah.
And what Winona Corky wants to do with her life, which is just she wants to be a mechanic.
Yep.
She wants to drive cabs until she has enough money to become a mechanic. And that is it. That is what she dreams of. She wants to eventually have a family, but that's down the line. And she first has to find the guy who's right for it. And she doesn't have any aspirations about this guy besides the fact that he also wants a family and will support her in this.
Yeah.
And I just like this kind of celebration of this very just normal person. It was a very simple goal.
Normal, down to earth, simple life. Yeah.
So many people have big dreams. I think most people do. So it's nice to just kind of celebrate this person who normally I feel like would get looked down upon by either movies or society in general. It's just like, I just want to be mechanically, what a waste of your life. And it's like, no, this is something to celebrate. As someone who just knows what they want, is very modest about it. It's just that's what I am going to do. That is my life path, and I am happy in this.
Yeah.
And this, the casting agent lives in Beverly Hills.
Yeah.
And probably knows the power that she has to give, to
Yeah.
bestow upon anyone. Just be like, hey, you want to be a movie star? We'll put you on this
Here you
part.
go.
And only this character of Corky is the one that can tell her,
Yeah.
no. I'm doing my own thing.
There's no temptation.
Yeah.
She doesn't even really consider it for a moment.
Yeah, she's like, I don't even want that. I
Yeah.
get it. I know people want it, but it's not her.
Because they get to, Jenna's Beverly Hills. I remembered Jenna finally. Jenna's Beverly Hills home.
Thank God.
And she officially offers Corky like the role in the movie. He's like, I think you really have it. It's not the whole movie. You see her kind of realizing subtly, looking at angles through the windshield.
Yeah.
See how she plays in profile, and her personality. And it's like, I want this role for you. I'll make you a movie star. You'll be the biggest thing in the world. And Corey's like, thanks, but I'm good.
Yeah.
Let's be a mechanic.
I have to comment. I loved that she wore a full-size flashlight on her
Yes.
keyring.
And like a wrench.
Yeah.
It's like a full wrench.
And
Yeah.
I loved the audio of her walking around.
Yeah.
Because that thing
It's
was
all
just banging
jingling.
around.
Yeah.
And I get the sense Winona really enjoyed doing this out of her performance. It seems like she had a lot of fun just like kind of doing a more humorous character finally.
Yeah.
Finally, and from her POV.
Yeah, up
And then-
until this point, you guys have not seen
Yeah, she hasn't really done like
that.
a funny movie since where she is the source of humor since
Right.
Heathers probably.
Right.
Yeah.
And Heathers is like a very dark comedy.
Yeah. Dark humor.
Like Edward Scissorhands, she's not really the source of comedy. Mermaids is a drama. Roxy Carmichael and Great Balls of Fire, she's a more dramatic character in those.
And she's also not trying to be funny in
Yeah.
this. She's just being
A person.
yes.
The
but
hum-
we're laughing at it.
Yeah.
And that's more of a comment on us as the
Yeah.
audience.
The humor is all coming out of like a natural place.
Yes.
It's not unnatural humor.
Totally.
yeah.
But I grew to really like her little performance in this movie. It's very small. And this is one of her less seen movies from this time. But I really like just what she brings to this 20-minute segment of a picture.
Yeah. Yeah. Me too.
She tracks this character's entire emotional arc, understands deeply who they are, gives that to the audience, gives that to her co-star, and then their section ends, and that's it.
And I think it's important to comment that the ending of this segment sets the tone for what the rest of the segments will be, because
Totally.
the segment
Yeah.
doesn't end with, and yes, I will take the role, and yes, she's become famous, and
Yeah.
blah, 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 all that stuff, and then New York. That it's just like, nope, I'm good. You have a nice rest of your night, and then they drive away, probably never see each other ever again, and then New York, and that's it. I almost feel like we could have gone without the little transitionary music. The
Yeah. I like the yeah.
Are you making a noise with
I
your
was
mouth?
making that noise.
that was very good.
insane.
You know, I
That
thought-
was very good. Jeff, I think I've never heard you do this good of a trumpet before. This is good, right, Will? He's actually
You're not playing on this?
no.
Okay.
This is him. This is
Okay.
all
Oh.
him. Wow, I'm really
You can only speak in trumpet the rest of the episode.
yeah.
Yes.
That's really
Have I never
good.
done that before?
Well, you have, but
I
that
can't
was
whistle, but I can do that.
that was really good.
Also, for people who can't see at home, he has a ventriloquist face on when
Yeah.
he's doing this. So you cannot tell that this noise is emitting from his face.
My face. I do like the. I'm pro.
Really? I don't
I'm
know.
pro. I'm
I
pro
would've-
transition.
I would have preferred no music, no sound.
What are you transitioning then? Are you just going to those exterior
Just the clocks.
shots?
I like the clocks.
Oh, the clocks is
I like
okay,
the
yeah.
clocks. I don't like the cut to the 5 clocks to and then it zooms in on the clock and the time readjusts back
Yeah.
like 20, 30 minutes. And it's like I could have done the clock whole animation thing without the music, just silence, and then we just fade into New York.
I folks
Like,
am pro clock, pro music.
I'm only pro clocks. I'm not pro music.
I don't know. I think it'd be cool if it was just Tom Waits in a room and he would
Yeah.
just be like, Helsinki.
Helsinki, Helsinki. Yeah. Tom, He like crawls out of your television like the Ring. He's like, Helsinki! Tom, no!
Oh my god.
Tom, please!
My wife.
God. What I also like the bit that this ending establishes that is weirdly only not picked up with New York, but I think that there's a thematic reason why, is that every section ends with the passenger being left at their destination. Like with the taxi drives away and we're with the passenger at the end of each section.
Yeah.
Except for New York, but I think that's basically because the roles reverse.
Wait,
That he becomes the passenger?
Yeah.
That's a good point.
no, it drives
Right, because Helmet is the cab driver, but he was being driven to
Yeah, but he-
Giancarlo's.
but it doesn't drive away. I thought it drives away. It like scoots away.
It does.
Because like basically this one ends with Jenna Rawlings walking into her house and Winona drives away, but we end with Jenna. Paris ends with the blind
blind
woman walking away.
That's right.
Seeing the accident.
Rome ends with the body on the bench.
Yes.
And Helsinki ends with the dude just sitting on the crab.
On the
curb.
That's the end of the.
Yeah, but New York, which we're coming to next,
Yes.
is the only one that ends in the cab, but it's because of the role reversal, I think.
That's very good. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
That is
But
very good.
I want to talk about, let's talk about New York.
Great.
Because we're with Helmut, who is played by...
Say it. Do it.
Oh, his name is actually Armin Mueller-Stahl. Armin Mueller-Stahl.
That is some dynamite pronunciation.
Thank you. I recently looked this man up because he was in an episode, or he was in the movie The Game. David Fincher's The Game. Which, if you've ever seen The Game, is such a fucking good movie.
It's so good. Yeah.
Stuart, have you ever seen The Game?
No.
You know the pitch of The Game?
What's the game?
You know those like those like things you can send where it's like a life game that you'll play where you're a spy and like all around the city you have to like play this game. Have you ever like seen ads for those?
No.
It's basically like the concept is like a full city with like wide escape room idea.
Oh,
is like
okay.
you're gonna play a game within the world and we're gonna like hide envelopes around and you have to find them and you're like the spy who's uncovering this conspiracy.
Okay.
And it's like you're just kind of playing in a real cityscape with real people.
Gotcha.
But like you know,
yeah.
they've kind
David
of like
Fincher.
they've led these clues. It's like Michael Douglas gets embroiled in one of these that turns out to be so much more sinister than he could possibly have unveiled and starts losing a grip on his life and reality as he's being sucked into this game that he does not want to be playing. It's so fucking good.
That's great. Yeah. I'll add that to the list.
And there's scenes where it's like grabbing people and he's like, "Are you part of the game?"
Okay, so back to Helmut.
Yes, Helmut, who's an immigrant
Helmut.
from East Germany,
Yes.
a former clown.
Which important to say the time period of this being
1991, right after the wall has fallen.
Yes. Yeah.
And I found this story like it's really funny, I think, until the last second where it suddenly becomes this really sad tale.
Yeah.
About this guy whose life was entirely ripped away from him in a country he doesn't know anymore and is just lost.
Yes.
But at the beginning, this is all play for laughs because we actually start with
Giancarlo.
Right.
who is trying to get to his name is Yo-Yo. He's trying to get to Brooklyn. I keep wanting to say the Bronx.
There's a
Whenever you say New York, I just want to say the Bronx.
Why?
Well, Stuart. So
No.
You open that door.
No.
So the thing about Yo-Yo is that he knows that there are 5 boroughs, and he needs to get from Manhattan to Brooklyn, which, as we know, there are Queens, Brooklyn, Manhattan, Staten Island, the Bronx. Huh? That's a fist. We're now officially censoring any Gotti references on this show. But no, he's trying to get from one borough to the other.
Why'd you do this? you listed one borough, and Jeff puts out his thumb to the other with his pinky.
Yeah.
Hang loose.
Folks in the car listen to this. Do that hand gesture.
Yeah.
Shaka.
The Shaka.
But yeah, and what's interesting about this bit is, like you said, Jeff, there's no lockups. They're not locking up the street. Those cars are real cab cars passing him. And they were worried that like
one was going to stop for
one was going to stop for him, and
Oh, no way.
and
None of them did.
none of them did. Wow.
Because like the idea is he's being racially profiled.
Yeah.
Like it's the subtext. It's never said.
To
But
the point where one guy rolls down his windows, talks to him, and still
Yeah.
drives
He's
away.
like,
yeah.
where to? Brooklyn. And he drives away.
Yeah. And just like John Carlos is like, I have money. I'm just trying to get home.
Yeah.
And the only person who does eventually stop for him is the East German cab driver.
Yeah.
Who doesn't understand like
Immigrant.
American racial dynamics.
Yeah.
And also doesn't know how to drive.
Yes, doesn't know how to drive
car.
a car. And he's like with the car.
He's driving an automatic like it's a manual.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so he gets in this cab and immediately is like, bro, you cannot be driving this thing. Like you're just like, it's not safe. So he's like, I'll drive the cab
like, what the hell's
and
going
still
on, man?
pay you. And
Put it in D. Put it in D. yes, D.
Yes, D.
Drive. Yeah.
And so after like that confusion, Helmut does agree to let Yo-Yo
Don't
drive
tell
the cab.
anybody. Don't tell. He's like, who am I going to tell? The TLC, the taxi something
Yeah.
commission?
And so Giancarlo takes over driving the cab back to his house in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
And they have a conversation. He's like, what's your name, man? And it's Helmut. And he starts making fun of him because like that'd be like having the name Lampshade here.
Yeah.
And then Helmut's like, well, what's your name? Yo-Yo.
Yo-Yo. He's like, oh, it's like he's like, it's not like that.
Yes. Giancarlo is really funny in this.
Very different. It's not like that. The mind is but very specific.
Yes.
He gets very defensive about it.
But they're both essentially wearing the same hat.
Yeah, and he makes a comment about
And
that.
he keeps saying like, same hat.
hat. He's like-
and Giancarlo's like, no,
different hat.
different hats.
It's like the ears. And it's like, no, mine's the first. Mine's
Yes.
What he says mine's the. He says a line where Helmut.
Is this a line, really?
No, mine's
Um,
I think it's hype or something.
yeah.
Mine's fresh.
Oh, yeah, mine's tight.
Fresh. That's what he
yes.
says. He's like, this is fresh, and he's like, fresh hat, good.
Yes.
Fresh means good.
Him like learning American vernacular and
Yeah.
stuff, and he's just so pleasant the whole time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
After we can imagine what he's been through.
Yeah.
In hindsight, it's just so fun to watch.
Yeah.
And so like the bit of this one is like just realizing these two people are essentially the same person. They have very similar like cultural identity.
Yeah. Because he says, he's from East Germany. He's like, oh, did you have to escape? It's like, no, they just let me go.
Yeah.
And he doesn't have any family.
He used to be a clown.
He still
has a little red nose.
And he knows how to play like the two,
two flutes at the same time.
time.
It's like a funny little joke.
Yeah.
But also just realizing like this guy had a whole life that just was ripped away from him, and now at like in his 50s or 60s, now just living in New York doing a job he's never done before and doesn't know how to do.
a place he's never been.
Yeah.
Language he barely can speak.
As the Wikipedia article describes it, increasingly alarmed at Helmut's inability to handle an automatic transmission, ignorance of New York geography, and feeble command of the English language.
Another shout out to those
Really want to-
to those wiki editors.
Yeah. I'm particularly fond of feeble command of the English language. That's the one I'm really getting with. Yo-Yo takes over the wheel, and they're driving after this conversation, and Yo-Yo notices his sister-in-law Angela on the street, played by Rosie Perez, and forces her to get in the cab with him so he'll drive her home. And he's like, Angela, what are you doing running around at night? What are you doing? It's like not safe around here. And she gives it back to him just as good.
I gives it back to him more. So
Yes.
She wins those exchanges.
Yes.
The next, it's basically just like Yo-Yo and Rosie Perez yelling at each other for like the next 10 to 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And then he gets
what I like-
Helmut is smiling. through
He's
all of
really
this.
enjoying it.
Yes.
I like though is like Yo-Yo then says like, oh, who's this guy? He used to be a clown. He does this like flute
Yeah.
playing, and it kind of disarms the situation just like a
Yeah.
little bit, and it's just kind of I like the way that everybody starts off with Helmut being like, come on, dude, like old man who doesn't know how to
Yeah.
drive and speak English, like, and then like a short amount of time getting to know him, it's like immediately you're almost like disarmed by this
Yeah.
guy. And even though Yo-Yo is the one driving it, you kind of feel like safe that Helmut's in the passenger
Yeah.
seat
Right.
with you.
Oh, that's great.
And
excellent.
and so, but then that is interesting that it almost the roles reverse
they flip the
quickly.
two.
Yes.
They flip them when he does drop him off, and I love the last scene because then with the role reverse, then it becomes Helmet feels safe with Yo-Yo, particularly with the cash exchange. And he's like, okay. He's like, well, we missed at the very beginning. It's like, you have to flip the meter. Like, if you don't flip the meter, it's like, you don't even know how much you're charging. And so at the very end, and then it's a very quiet moment where, did they drop Rosie off like prior?
Rosie gets out first, and then Yo-Yo gets out.
They live in the same building.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I know at one point it ends with just them two in the car, and then it's just this quiet moment where Yo-Yo like turns off the meter, and he's like, okay, so it's like, it's like, so it says like, I owe you this much. It's like, so I have the cash here. And he's like, okay, thank you. It's like, no, like, dude, you got to count the cash. He's like, look at what the meter says. It says 18. It's like, count how much I paid you. Like, 17. You gave me one short. It's like, yeah, and I have the $1.
Yeah.
So he gives him the $1 and be like, it's New York, man. You got to like look out for yourself. And then
when I do like that Helmet is just like, money, I don't need it.
Yeah.
It's not important to me.
Yeah.
I need it, but it's not important to me.
Yeah.
My work is important to me.
Yeah.
And just like he's happy and grateful to like have something.
Yeah.
But then Yo-Yo goes inside, and in a traditional movie, like this would be like Helmet is now prepared to go out into the world now they learned all these lessons.
Because he says, "What now? Are you going back home, or where are you trying to get back to?" It's like, go back to Manhattan. He's like, okay, well, you just take a right on this street.
Yeah, and then make the opposite of whatever we did.
Yeah.
So we made a left, make a right.
Right.
We made a right, make a left.
And so, yeah.
He's
That
like,
gave me
right.
such panic because I was like, I would not be able to do that.
Yeah. And so then Helmet takes off, and he's immediately lost. And you're getting his POV of the roads around him, and he looks very scared. And is now and he's driving by like all these police activities and fire trucks whizzing by.
Yeah.
He's in a bad area at a bad time of night. And he just kind of looks petrified and scared and alone in this world. And he just mutters to himself, New York, New York.
Yeah.
And that's where we leave him. Like I said this on the Air vs. Ransom, but sad old man performances always do it for me.
Yeah.
And in the end, I was just like, oh my God, this is like crushing.
Yeah.
This poor guy, like, had his entire life ripped away from him, came to the land of opportunity, is now stuck driving a cab in a place he doesn't know, doing a job he is not good at.
Yeah.
And
But
that's just what he's got.
But I think his interaction with people,
Yeah.
with what we saw, will guide him.
Yeah.
To
You want to
find-
believe.
That's what
Yeah.
I'm choosing to believe that.
Yes.
I think that's the genius of the movie is that I think we're all kind of hoping and thinking that.
Yes.
And it's amazing that we're all thinking about that about a fictional character
Right.
in a movie. It's like, I like to think that he picked up a few other fares of nice people who helped him out. And after a few nights of doing that, he got
got a rhythm.
Yeah, you got a rhythm. Well, but all that is off-screen assumptions.
Totally.
Like maybe he got carjacked and killed that same night. Like who knows?
You don't know.
You don't know.
But this goes back to what Jeff said at the very beginning, that this movie doesn't try to be anything more than it is.
Yeah.
And lets us fill in what we think, what happens with these characters
Yeah.
after the scene and before the scene.
And again, to go back very earlier what you said, Jeff, how like we're left with all of the passengers except for this one because of the role switch. And it is very much
He's the passenger.
because he's
He's
the passenger not only in the textual sense that he was the passenger in the cab fare, but he's just kind of like being
the passenger of life.
he's the passenger of
he's
life.
riding.
He's not in the driver's seat of life.
Yeah. Bro.
We immediately followed this section up with what I think is probably the least interesting one, Paris.
Oh, I don't know. This was very peak vibes.
It's like a good vibe, but the whole time it's like there's not really much interesting here.
I mean, once we leave America, it becomes more about vibes.
If there was one I had to lose, it would be Paris.
Yes.
But I'm not saying I didn't enjoy
Yeah,
it.
it's
I'm
like
just saying
fine.
if I had to.
I agree with that. If there is one we have to lose, it'd be Paris. But yeah, I agree with everything you're saying. I liked it for the vibes.
I think though, sorry to cut you off.
No.
In 91, when this came out, this might be more what it's trying to comment on about like blindness and race. Things weren't doing that as much because like that's where I think they're trying to.
Yeah.
But now in 2024, we're in like a post version of that movement.
Yes.
And that's where like, movies like this in this time frame have a special place because you can watch it with like, knowing what it was like back then in the 90s and being like, yeah, like I buy all these premises.
Yes.
Like if you make a movie about a Lyft driver facing the same obstacles,
Yeah.
you'd have a little bit of like a, Really? Like, okay.
It would feel dated.
Yeah,
it
it'd
totally
feel a little
would.
dated.
It wouldn't make sense because like Lyft is something that's indicative in Uber to our time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I do think it got down to the like very what's the word I'm looking for? Like microscopic view of like having to differentiate African accents, which is something that like where he did not feel. What's the driver's name?
Well, he doesn't have a name.
Okay, right.
Yeah, he's unnamed taxi driver played by Isaac de Bangold.
From the Ivory Coast.
Yes.
He's from.
Both the actor and the character are both from the Ivory Coast.
Yes. But he doesn't feel that sort of connection with his first passengers.
Yeah.
And they're like belittling him. And obviously, I don't want to jump ahead, but you can.
Because it's just what you're saying. He is with two African diplomats in his car who are drunk.
Who are supposed to understand the world.
Yes.
The earth.
Yes.
Yes.
As it were.
Yes.
And they're mocking him because he's from the Ivory Coast, which is like beneath them in terms of like African country hierarchy.
Yes.
Have you guys seen the Black Mirror episode, season 5, with Andrew Scott, the Smithereens episode where he plays a cab driver and he takes a guy hostage? It's less about like the cab driver nature of it and more so about like the social media part.
But can you draw a parallel to this movie and that episode?
So
is that what you're?
I mean, I guess it takes the same aspect of like passengers and drivers, all different people with their own like life struggles and things going on like that. I'm losing my train of thought. I'm sorry. That was a big...
Smithereens, Andrew Scott.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I think it just has that cab driver nature of it, that this is a guy whose life fell apart prior to it off screen. And so we're just kind of picking him up with where he's at right now. It takes it in a different like direction, more like with social media commentary on it, but still think it has like some interesting parallels with it.
Totally.
Because he's trying to take a specific guy hostage from this big company, and it ends up being an intern.
Is this one of the great Black Mirror episodes where at the end it's like, cell phones, are they bad?
Basically, yeah.
And you're like, whoa!
Yeah. Basically, yeah. That is essentially where it boils down to. Cell phones are bad.
I think whoever brought up passenger driver, that relationship is so interesting because we also, just in terms of life, go in and out of that.
Yeah.
Where sometimes we feel like we're driving.
Yeah.
Sometimes we feel like we're just riding along.
And that's a power dynamic we run into multiple times every day. Whether you're on a train, a plane, an automobile, you could be a passenger or you could be a pilot.
Yeah.
And I think universal thing that will never go away is how since the dawn of like not just cab drivers. Well, just any like horseback carriages
before the Cro-Magnon
and ferries and things like that. Just that the fundamental piece of that whole thing is our willingness to give up that control.
Yes,
is something that has never changed. That we're so willing to get into
a random person's car, an airplane, a bus, a boat, or whatever, and we're just kind of like, we have no like. I mean, some people do. It's different variations of like anxious passengers, things like that. But that's the interesting juice of it, is all the different people who are. You could get on a plane and it could be the pilot's first day. Yeah.
You don't know. Like, you have no idea, but you're just kind of like shutting that side of your brain off of like, should I be worried about this?
Yeah.
No, not really. And that's where I think to title back to Paris is where I felt the most of that.
Yes.
That this blind woman who is walking the street at night.
Yes.
On her own. See, I think this is the most important fundamental piece of it, is that she is so like that piece of her brain of like, should I be worried about this? Should I be worried about walking next to a canal being blind? Should I be worried about walking alone at night? Should I be worried about getting into a stranger's cab alone? Who's doing things that I can't see, but I know he's taking different turns. He's turning a light on. All of the thing in Paris is all about that like switch that we flip when we get into a cab or get into a plane of like, whatever. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm in a car now. Yeah. I'm out of control, but I'm not worried about it.
Yeah.
And so that's where I liked the Paris
Yeah,
bit.
and then so much of her life is just giving control to other people, and she has to trust that they're not gonna do something bad to her.
And when he drops her, like, let's quickly just go through the Paris things. I think we can get through it quickly.
Because he throws the 2 diplomats out that we'd mentioned earlier who were mocking him, being from the Ivory Coast. And then he picks up this blind woman. Who also does not have a name. She's just blind woman.
I love something we didn't mention. A lot of the destinations the passengers give the cab drivers are no one gives an address.
Yeah, it's not like they're saying, I need to go to Times Square. It's just like, I need to go to
Brooklyn, or in Helsinki, it just says, we live on the other side of town.
Yeah.
That they just say that.
Just go there. Yeah.
If you pick someone up from Wicker Park in Chicago, what's the other side of town? To me, that means you could almost go to Evanston or Bridgeport. Like, you could go to like one way or the other. There's multiple different sides of the town. But I don't know. I just like the idea that they play with the whole, like, where are you off to? Brooklyn. They don't say where in Brooklyn. Or
I'm from Brooklyn.
LA, he just says I live in Beverly Hills.
And then it's like go there, and then once she's closer, she starts to give her more directions. I think there are a lot of people nowadays that maybe would not be able to do that if they were getting picked up from the airport.
But they always get to the right destination.
I take a lot of pride in having a very good sense of direction. I'm very good at finding my way around.
You also have to have your GPS unmuted.
No, I have the screen off though.
That's what I'm saying.
I'm one of those.
Do you know this dichotomy in people using GPS in their car, Will?
Yes. I don't know this, but I know what I am. So
what are you?
I'm a unmuted.
Unmuted?
Yeah.
Where's your phone? In the car?
It's an Apple CarPlay, so it's right there.
Yeah. Sorry.
I am.
No.
So because if it's down here,
and it's because now we're getting into multiple different variations.
take me to the
wanted to narrow it
Stuart's
down.
making a really sweaty allegory.
No. This is important.
How about more layers? There's like 5 options. You're one of the 5.
There's more layers to it, okay? There's more layers, but let me boil it down to just the 2 options. There's people who they have their GPS either mounted or CarPlay or a GPS on the dash.
One
muted,
of the 3.
Okay.
Muted, right?
Yeah.
And so all they're doing is they're just like peeking over to the GPS and they can do it. That's me.
Yeah.
I don't like having the GPS unmuted where every 5 seconds, like, make a left turn in 5 seconds. And then there's other people who they don't want to see their GPS.
Oh.
They'll put their phone in the cup holder face down or in their pocket or wherever, and they have it unmuted.
So it'll just say things.
So it's an auditory direction.
Mm-hmm.
So those are the 2. That's the main fundamental 2 dichotomy of it. It's that some people like knowing where they're going visually. Some people like knowing where they're going auditorily.
To tie this back to Taylor Swift. Yeah. If I'm in the car bopping along and the bridge is about to hit hard, and it goes, take a left, kills me.
It's crippling.
Then why
Kills
do
me.
you have it unmuted?
No, I'm sorry. I'm a muted person.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
okay, sorry.
Did
Okay.
I say unmuted?
I think so.
So you just
apologize.
look at it.
I'm a looker.
You're a looker.
I put my phone on the thing and then I actually turn the screen off and I just have it tell me where I'm going.
That's the other
interesting.
one.
Like
that's
I'm just driving,
coin.
I'm always looking at the road and then it's just like make a right at Division.
And then
make
it's
the right
just
division.
this.
And that's hard. and Jeff, that's
5 lanes of
easier.
traffic.
That's easier for you to do, as opposed to like if I could explain to the audience, like looking straight ahead of the road and moving your eyes 2 centimeters to the right to see the directions on your phone screen. Right.
I will say I miss some turns sometimes.
I do too.
Like if I miss an exit, usually it's not an exit because I'm like really paying attention about where I got. But if it's like it's somewhere if it's like residential sometimes and I'm not looking, you'll miss it because they didn't say.
Dead ass, I turned my thing off and I did like the visual when I drove to Indianapolis to see Oppenheimer in like the mega screen they have there.
Uh-huh.
And I was driving 2 friends. And I missed 5 exits and added 20 minutes to our route because I just kept driving straight because I wasn't like looking at the map.
Because you weren't looking at the screen because you're conditioned to just listen for
eventually
the
I just
cues.
like looked at the screen and it's like you have to make a U-turn and go back 10 miles.
Jeff, stop.
But that is an interesting dichotomy here that we have. That some people are auditory directioners and some people are visual directioners.
Yeah.
It is interesting.
But anyway, the blind person is definitely an auditory directioner to bring it back to this as inelegantly as possible.
Yeah, my biggest point with the Parisian segment is that I knew
that was not a sound effect.
I knew we were going to get at least one French reenactment from Jeff. That she has to give up that control almost all the time. So yeah, when he drops off the diplomats, he picks up the blind woman, and she says, "I'm going to go onto the canal. Drop me off on like the west side of it or whatever.
Yeah.
Take this specific route." And the driver says, "Well, I'll just take this route. It'll be much easier." And she says, "Okay, but like," or no, he is very like defensive the entire ride. Like he almost has like a lot of like negative reactions to everything that everybody is saying in his cab. So when she says take this route and be like, I know the best route to get there. And then there's
she produces the sign.
And then she sees the sign.
Well, Stuart, she doesn't see the sign.
She feels it.
She feels the sign.
Yes.
She feels the sign that says like, if you know a better route, like let your driver know. And so she says like, well, what about this sign? He just like takes a sign and throws it in his front seat. And so, then pretty much just regular driving. We get some conversation. At one point he asked her about having sex, where he says like, I've always wanted to ask a blind person this, but like when you have sex with a man, how do you know it's them?
Yeah.
Like that's essentially in simpler terms what he asks her.
Yeah.
And she says like, I don't know about you, but when I'm having sex, I'm doing it with
my whole body.
With my whole body and all my senses. So like I can smell the man I love from like a block away. It's like, well, it must stink then.
Yeah.
So again, just going more along with this narrative of giving up that control. In her case, because she has to.
Yeah. And I like that he asked, like, essentially he really tests her and he's like, where am I from in the world? And she displays like how, without the ability to see, how much she listens. And it's like, you're from the Ivory Coast. She knows his accent. She knows like his culture. Yeah. And it's like, even though she can't see, she still can tell everything about people.
Yeah. And that gets duplicated even more when he like he sees that she's trying to light a cigarette and he turns a light on.
Yeah.
And she obviously can't see that, but she knows there's something different in the car. And so she's like, what did you just do?
Yeah. She's like, I turned the light on.
She's putting a lip liner on.
Or lip liner on,
Yes, which is also very interesting because she's like feeling her way around her face.
Yeah. And so, do you think this actress is overdoing the whole eye roll thing?
Okay,
or those
I wanted to comment. Yeah. No, I don't think they're contacts. I think she's literally looking up Morpheus style when he's about to
interrogate him.
At last.
Humans are a virus.
No, Stuart. I have to get out of here. It's the smell. The smell just does it for me.
I regret bringing up Morpheus.
Mr. Anderson.
This is going to keep playing on the loop.
So anyways, yes, she is. She is not blind. She's looking upwards.
Yes.
And I was thinking that must have hurt.
Oh my
I'm
God.
trying to do it right now.
That's
not pleasant.
To do this like through so many of the takes, it'd be like, oh my God, that's a nightmare.
She did very well.
Yeah.
Like, she didn't break. Like
And then another demonstration of the power dynamic is that he takes a different turn in the tunnel.
Yeah.
And she can
tell.
Immediately knows.
Sherlock Holmes style, Robert Downey Jr., where he gets the hood put over him, knows exactly where he's being led. And so she's like, why'd you go down this way in the tunnel? And he just says like,
it's crazy that Sherlock Holmes movie exists. It's so it's so funny that like that Guy Ritchie.
Wait, did you say one?
There's two
like there's multiple.
No, but Guy Ritchie, like, it's funny, like his whole thing for like 10 years is just like, what if we take all these historical or legends and just they fight now? They're boxers.
Them sweet.
It's like Sherlock Holmes, but he's a boxer now. He's coming on all the fools. And he's like, I'm going to make the King Arthur movie. But he's a boxer. He's pounding all the fools with a fist. It's just like that was his thing.
So it's like the
years.
James Cameron story. He wrote Sherlock on the board, and then he just punches the board.
He punched the studio exec. He's like, that's what's going to be like when Sherlock gets into town.
I need the sound effect discombobulate.
Yeah.
You guys see that YouTube video where it's discombobulate for 10 hours? Just like first right hook, then discombobulate, boom, then jab to the stomach, boom, discombobulate.
It does it for 10 hours?
Yeah.
Oh, God.
It's 10 hour long. Okay, so this is all interesting conversation. I wish that this segment was more interesting to watch. I'm just gonna say it. It's like kind of boring.
It did slow it down a bit. For me.
And so eventually he gets to the canal.
Yes.
And
he drops her off.
And immediately, like, I don't know about how you guys were interpreting this, but it's like and the camera angle is almost brilliant here because it's a little bit of a wide shot from the front of the car looking back at it. So we see the canal on the left side of the screen and the road on the right side. Mm-hmm. She gets out on the rear right passenger seat facing the canal. And we think, okay, that either wherever she's going, maybe she just lives closest there. Mm-hmm. But she doesn't go to the sidewalk or the road. She goes straight to the edge of the canal.
Yes.
And my first inclination thinking is like, oh my God, is she like going here to like kill herself, or is she just wanted to go out here to walk? Like, was that it? Because we found her out in the middle of the night, a blind woman, just walking alone, and we're thinking, okay, like she's already putting herself in a dangerous situation, and so she's at least getting in a cab. That's at least better. But now she's putting her in another dangerous and even more dangerous situation that she's walking alone at night, blind, next to a large body of water. So,
but I like that it's like she is in the more dangerous situation, but she has control over it. Totally. Meanwhile, he who can see immediately gets into a car accident, and the other guy gets out of the car. Is like, "Are you blind?"
And that's the punchline of the whole bit. That like we think during this whole segment that she's the one that's in more danger.
She's passenger to her life because she is blind.
Yeah,
you're right.
And that is not control.
She's the driver.
She drives her life. Yes,
and he's a passenger of circumstance.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's like it's a nice button on it. I just kind of think this is like the least.
I agree.
Investing.
Yes,
of the
I
five.
liked the end, but yes, I did not feel taken like I did with the other ones.
Yes.
Immediately.
If you want to talk about one that gets taken, we go to Rome right after. Dun, 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 dun. Going to Rome. No, it should just be Tom Waits explaining the places that we're going to. We're going to Rome. There's the Vatican.
Like, hi, Stuart.
He's just like
Stuart.
he's just like listing off landmarks. I would be in the theater like Avengers Endgame, like losing my mind if that was
Yeah.
So we're with Roberto Benigni, everybody's favorite.
Yes.
I mean, he's probably like he's the best section of this, right? I mean, the funniest. If
He's
not
the
best.
funniest.
This was
funniest.
hilarious.
He's the funniest. Yeah, this was extremely comedic. He's driving out Rome in the middle of the night, and it's 4 a.m. over there.
Yeah.
So I think this is a good thing to mention that it's like 9 p.m. in LA, midnight in New York, and then like 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. No, there's a bigger time change than that, but because it goes back to the same time,
but like time differences,
right? But New York to Paris is like a 10-hour time change.
Wait, no,
it's
not
6 hours.
occurring
Is it
at
5
the
to
same
6 hours?
time, right? Isn't it just a full
think so.
night and you're progressing through the night?
because it always resets.
Clocks
the
are
clock.
resetting a little bit though.
So I think it's supposed to be the same time, but like they're different times because of time zones.
Because
Okay.
Helsinki happens and it's like just about
5
morning.
a.m..
Yeah, like the
Copy.
ending is blue hour.
So like you're going through the night on Earth.
Got it.
So yeah, this is where like, but in Rome it is like 4 a.m.
Yes.
and there's nobody out. He's the only one driving, and he's just
And he's like.
He's driving erratically.
Yes.
It may seem erratically, but he has full control. He's like weaving in and out these little tiny streets. Also, I believe the cars are getting smaller.
yeah.
Yes.
You've
They are
evolved
increasingly-
from the boat that Winona Ryder was commandeering to now this little tiny Roman cab.
Fiat.
Yes, that is just like weaving in and out of the brick streets.
Yeah.
And
And he
he's-
has a radio in the car.
and he's
or
basically
something.
just like having a sexual innuendo conversation with his dispatch agent.
Yes.
Being like, so when are we having a sex? What?
nothing.
So when are we going to do it? The penetration.
Stuart had his fingers on the trigger. Of his, I'll do it.
I will do it.
But yeah, he's having like there's really not a lot to say about the section besides the fact that it is really funny. Because he basically, like, he's driving around. He gets a call. He comes across a priest. And he's like, I'm going to mess with this guy.
No. I'm a mess with him?
Do you think
because he does, like,
yes, that's right. That's right. I
because
forgot
he
about
sees,
that.
he
Yes,
sees
that's
like,
right.
the priest standing essentially in a square.
That's
and there's,
right.
like, the statue in the middle.
Yes.
And the road, it roundabouts the statue. And the priest is on one side and the car's on the exact opposite. And anytime the priest moves, the car moves parallel with him. So the priest is, like, trying to get in this car, but the car's always on the opposite side of the statue, so you can never get to him.
Yeah.
Eventually, Benigni tries to, like, skirt out of there, and the priest is able to catch up to him and get in the car. And then, from what I've read about the making of this movie, is Benigni basically improv'd all of his dialogue in this section.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's basically just like, Jarmusch was just like, hey, Roberto, just start saying stuff. It doesn't matter what you say.
Wow.
We just need, like, this. The joke of this is that you're just rambling while this guy literally dies in your back seat.
Yeah.
Spoiler, because that's what's happened.
Yeah. So he's driving around, and you get that he's making a lot of sexual innuendo jokes with the dispatcher. I guess, like, to put, like, a name on, like, the personality trait of this guy, like, he lives a free life.
Yeah.
And he has no barriers whatsoever.
I will once again defer to the Wikipedia editors for how this goes. As he drives, he starts to confess his sins. Much to the priest's discomfort, he goes into great detail about how he discovered his sexuality, first with the pumpkin and then with a sheep, then details a love affair he had with his brother's wife, miming the actions and mouthing the cries. Already ailing, overwhelmed by the barrage of unwanted information, the priest has a fatal heart attack. It is basically like just Roberto Benigni being like, yeah, so I had sex with a sheep once, and that was when I discovered my sexuality,
Well,
but the pumpkin came before.
He's trying to treat his cab like it's a confessional.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he thinks this guy's a bishop.
And he's not.
Keeps saying, I got a bishop in my back seat.
He's like, I'm not a bishop.
He's like,
I
not
swear
a
to
bishop.
Christ,
And
I'm not a bishop.
He's like, this cannot be a confession booth because there's no anonymity. I see you. And it doesn't matter. He just keeps telling this very descriptive story about how he found himself as a man.
Yes.
I was
so
thinking,
funny.
like, it's very deliberate choices to be like, okay, this is Rome at 4 a.m. in the middle of the night. The only people who are out is this, like, couple having sex, like, just in public.
Just upstanding on a.
Yes.
Then there's some trans hookers, I'm assuming, on the side of the road. And then we have, like, this fornicating conversation between a taxi and his dispatcher. And just, like, I guess, like, where I came into
Roma is a city of a sin and a sexuality, huh?
and so basically, like, my whole thing is, like, this bishop, not bishop, priest.
The priest, yeah.
Yeah. Who
It's
is
so overwhelmed by sin, he literally dies.
yeah, like, literally, he is almost, he's putting his life into his own hands by, like, going out into a blizzard of sin, and he doesn't make it home.
Yeah.
It's essentially what is
It's
happening.
essentially the plot.
That's,
here.
yes.
Yeah.
This one is the one that's played purely for laughs.
Yeah.
Is for the most
They
part.
go full comedy
Yeah.
here.
This is full comic.
Yeah.
Where it's just Benigni and just, like, riffing for minutes while in the backseat. This guy's and it's like trying to get his pills, but he can't.
He starts by, with the confessional thing and be like, I had sex with a pumpkin and I never forgot it. And then I met this sheep named Lola, and it goes into great detail about it. And then he's like, and then I had really hot sex with my
brother's wife.
with my brother's wife. If you haven't done it before, Father, you really should try it. I don't know why I'm going into, like, the Trump voice there. It's like, if you haven't done it
If
before,
you haven't
Father,
done it, you should try it, because believe me, folks, you're not getting another experience like that again.
And so, and as this is happening, this guy's trying to take, like, pills. I'm assuming, like, some kind of heart regulatory.
They would
thing.
stop this heart attack.
Yeah, it would
we
stop
imagine.
this heart attack, I'm guessing. But they bounce out of his hand, and then he starts to like convulse with his chest, and he's like,
So the thing that's funny is, like, it's one of those like fall out of hands that movies do where it's like clearly the actor doing it.
Yeah.
And so it looks like he just intentionally throws the pills. It's like he chooses death over being in this cab with this man anymore.
Yeah.
Which this is why I like that idea that he chooses to die rather than be stuck with this man anymore.
And then this guy, the priest, eventually dies, and it takes Benigni
A while.
Long
He's just
time
sitting
to
in the
realize.
back seat like this.
because he's like, "You asleep, Father? You asleep? Hey, oh my God, he died." Eyes still open. Worst dead body acting because the man literally is breathing and blinking, all that shit. And
This
so he
character doesn't have a name, does he?
no, just priest. I'm pretty sure.
No,
Gino
like
taxi
Gino.
driver. Gino.
Yeah.
And so
They're like, hey, what's an Italian name? And some guy's like, I don't know, Gino. Is like, all right, we'll do that.
And so he just out of sheer panic drops this guy off by like a bench somewhere. Spends a lot of time trying to like make sure he's like positioned in a way that it looks like he could be like sleeping or whatever. And then he drives off. And that's the end of the bit. It's the end of the whole segment.
That is the end of it's all comedy.
Yeah.
He dies.
There's not really like a point to it. It's just funny.
Yeah.
But then we come to our fun turn.
I'm clearly the passenger on this cab.
And we're in Helsinki, which I must confess is the oddest inclusion here of the 5 cities.
Yes.
I like it though.
No, I like it. It just is funny. That's like New York, Los Angeles, Paris, Rome, Helsinki.
Helsinki. Well, it's like it could have been Moscow. It could have been Sydney, Australia. It could have been Tokyo.
They should have just fucking gone for the fences and done like some like small town in Kyrgyzstan or something.
I guess that's why I like that it was Helsinki, Finland.
Yeah.
Like it's out
of the way.
of the way, and it's not a poppin' big metropolis. It's it's Helsinki.
But we get our lads, our Finnish lads.
The way that they intro them is so. I loved it so much.
Would you care to tell the story?
They're basically all asleep. Oh, before this, he's getting the calls
Yes.
rolling through, and he's sort of waiting. He's a very serious gentleman.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he waits, I think, until he has one that's 3 people, and then he pulls the trigger on that.
Mm-hmm.
Pulls up. 3 drunk guys are sleeping, standing up, leaning against each other. And it just, he shows up. Does he honk the horn? He might honk the horn.
He honks the horn. He's like, "You called a cab?"
And the 2 on the side wake up, and the guy in the middle still is asleep and passes out on the ground. I thought that intro was brilliant.
Yes.
It's important to note, we didn't say this prior, but it's probably stupid to even mention this, but all of the ones like the international cities that go are in their native languages.
Yeah.
So they're not like putting it in English or whatever for all the different cities. They're all in their own language and then subtitled English.
Yes.
Which heighten the authenticity of it.
Yeah, right. It would have felt very often jarring once we bounced to Paris, Rome, and Helsinki,
Right.
if they were all still talking English.
Did you have a story about a stunt in this?
Oh, the Rome bit.
Oh,
sorry.
yeah. I
missed-
wanted to know that.
I missed that bit. So
Yeah.
there's one shot where Benigni is the car. It's from a wide shot outside the car, just static wide shot, seeing the car do this really tight turn around these
Yeah.
police officers.
Yes.
The story is that they were gonna have the stunt guy do it, and he couldn't make the turn. Like it was so tight, and he was just like struggling to get this turn in, and they were going multiple takes, and then eventually Benigni himself was like, "Well, can I try it?" And he did it on the first take.
That's awesome.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
And if you watch that, like if you know the shot I'm talking about,
I
like
know
that,
exact- yeah.
that was like
It's
inches.
Yes.
Inches. And he like floored through it too.
Yes.
Like
Yeah.
it was like, wow. Okay. And again, no lockups.
No.
Streets wide open.
Yeah. And the policemen are there too. There's like people.
Yep. and the another thing in Rome that we forgot to mention is he passes some street sweepers.
Oh, yes,
who were
yes,
actually,
yes.
and who were actually real people, and they were like cussing out the car, and that's when the crew like kind of came up. It's like, hey, like we kind of like that.
Yeah.
Can you guys are you guys cool with that? You just being in the movie?
Okay, so I was wondering, what are these guys doing? Because they have these massive witch brooms with giant bristles.
It's the witching hour in Rome.
That is how street sweeping was done.
Yeah.
Just 2 guys by hand.
Yeah.
Just the lads.
It's the lads. But yeah, I know we passed Rome already.
Sorry, I did want the stunt story.
Yes.
Right,
Yes.
but just to reiterate, like I know it's all like meant for comedy and there's not really much other deeper meaning behind it. But I did kind of interpret like, oh, like this is like the witching hour in Rome.
Yes.
You know, this holy city
When the
where
sin escapes.
he's picking
When
up
the devil is allowed out of the sewer for a couple hours.
Right. It's like he's
And
picking
sin.
up a priest who isn't normally exposed to the horrors of nightlife in Rome, kills him. And I just think that was an interesting motif that in this bit that I took away from it. Anyway,
Totally.
Helsinki.
Back to Helsinki.
Yeah.
He picks up the guys, the 3.
Yeah. 2 are awake, 1 still passed out.
Yes.
And they haul their passed out friend into the cab.
Yeah. And again, to go with the motif, they're like, where are you off to? It's like, we all live really close by,
Yeah.
just on the other side of town. They just give him other
Yes.
side of town, and he knows where to go.
And also one thing, he basically picked this fair because he thinks 3 people
Yeah.
get more money.
Yeah.
And we quickly find out that they're gonna get the money off of the drunk guy
Yeah.
Yeah. Because it's
when he's
his,
ready.
because none of them have money.
yeah, it's his severance pay.
Right.
So
And so like quickly they start they're making small talk.
yeah.
And
Do
they're
we-
like,
do we
oh.
need to pause it for? Okay. Gotcha.
And they're like, "Oh, we're out drinking. Our friend has had a rough week."
Yeah, he says
And the
his life
cab-
is terrible.
Yeah, the worst
awful.
week of life
his
The
ever.
worst week of his life ever. And he's and this guy who, what's the actor's name who plays the cab driver? Because he actually is given a name.
Maddie Pelonpa.
That's right.
He's playing Mika. Mika is the
Mika.
guy's name.
That's it.
Okay, gotcha. Mika. So Mika, you know, with his stoic, non-wavering, like tough guy look face, it's just like, why is it his worst week of his life? What happened? He's like, well, he lost his job. And you're like, oh, okay. And he's like, what happened? Like, is there anything else that happened? Because he's like, okay, he lost his job. What else? He's like, well, you don't understand. Like, this guy, he shows up and he's late a few times, like of the normal average kind of guy. But one day he shows up and he was late one too many times and he was just fired, just like that. He got into an argument with his boss. He was kicked out of the building, given a severance pay. And that's been it.
Yeah. And his wife is threatening to divorce him whilst also being pregnant. Oh, no, his daughter's pregnant.
That's right.
Yeah.
And the cab driver's like, oh, that's rough. And then they're like, what's your life like?
About to ruin this whole
Yeah.
man's career.
To once again shout out our Wikipedia friends. They were too distressed by this story to write it out. They wrote, the driver Mika then tells them the saddest story they have ever heard. And that is the only description.
That's all they put in there.
So Wikipedia's were
And with
too
that-
upset
And with that, we like to thank the sponsor of this
by
video,
Mika's.
Wikipedia.
The Wikipedia editors were too sad and distraught by Mika's story to put it to text.
And
Sir, would you like to tell Mika's story?
Sure. So essentially, like Mika starts telling these guys a story about, him and his wife, they both work really hard, long hour jobs because they want to save up to have a family.
Yeah.
And they were trying for many, many months. And then at one point, finally, his wife got pregnant. And
Yeah.
so they were very excited, very happy about it. But then I think around the 6-month mark, she started noticing some pain and symptoms. And so they go to the hospital and they say, oh, like we have to induce labor now because the baby's got to come early. So she delivers the baby. The baby's in very, very poor health, being prematurely born. And so then they, are concerned about it. And the doctor says, we don't think the child's going to live like past a week.
Mm-hmm.
So they go home and Mika. Mika, who's telling the story, and he says, like, and I decided that if we're going to lose this child, that I'm not going to get attached to it. I'm going to choose not to love.
Yeah, I'm going to choose not to love it.
And so,
And then he says, I choose to kill my love.
yeah, I choose to kill my love.
Yes.
But then 1 week went by, the child's still alive. Then another week, and then another week. 3 weeks went by, and
He's like, I rediscovered my love.
I rediscovered my love. My wife and I found a new purpose in raising this child, and we were so excited to get started in a family. We started our love, and so then we go to the hospital.
The doctor is waiting for
and the
us.
doctor's waiting for us, and he tells us just shortly before we arrived the child had passed away. And so it gets very quiet in the car, and the guys are
And they're all like, and we've all had this situation, I'm sure, where we're in the cab or an Uber, and the driver is a little sharing his personal life.
yeah,
And you still got 20 minutes left of that destination.
yeah.
And I'm so sorry, man. That's real rough.
Yeah. Right.
But they're so distraught by his story that they actually lose sympathy for their friend who just like lost his job.
They're like, yeah, this guy's life ain't that bad after
they're
all.
like, this guy's fine. They're like, he's gonna pay for it. They're like, we're leaving him.
Yeah. So they eventually make it to the destination where they get out. They don't even help their buddy out of the car.
Yeah, and they're like, man, I hope your life's okay. He'll pay for it.
And so then they walk away, and then he eventually turns around, drunk guy still in the back seat, and he just like wakes up, like, hey, come on. He's like, where the fuck am I? It's like, you're in a cab at your place, and you owe the fare. And so he gets out his envelope, he hands him some money, and then he just gets out of his car, and he like literally stumbles out of the car onto the sidewalk. And so Mika rolls the window down and be like, all right, you gonna make it home all right after this? And he's like, just stand aside. He's like, yeah. That's it. And then he's like, okay. And then he drives away. And then we're just left with the drunk guy.
Yeah.
Just sitting on the sidewalk.
Sun rises.
The sun rises.
And the night on Earth has ended.
Yeah, it's blue hour at this point, and we start seeing people leave their homes, and we can tell that they're like his coworkers who are still working at the job. So they're leaving their place, going to their place of work, and he just got home.
Yeah.
Not home. It's like close to his place, but he has not gone home yet.
But then we back in the good old world. I lived a night on Earth. I sailed around the sun. I had a lot of fun. Those aren't the actual lyrics. I just improv that.
We don't. There actually weren't actual lyrics.
It's just a muttering.
Continuous groaning.
That is the end of the movie. Yes. The end of the 5 vignettes.
Yeah.
I want to quickly ask, what rank the vignettes? Hot seat.
Okay.
I'll do it right now. I'm going to do L.A., Rome, New York, Helsinki, Paris.
Oh, Helsinki's so low.
It's still good.
I would say Helsinki first. New York. Rome, LA, Paris.
That's fair.
But I do acknowledge that the 4 are very neck and neck, 1 through 4.
And Paris is like an obvious
And
last.
Paris is an obvious last. It's not bad. I want to
none of this movie is bad.
None of this movie is bad. The Paris one isn't bad. It's just, it definitely is at a different energy level than the rest of them
Yes.
are. But I still like the idea and the theme of it. But yeah, I would say, Helsinki, what did I say? New York, Rome, LA, Paris for me.
I think I'm going to go Rome first. I had
That's fair.
so much enjoyment just throughout the whole thing, and I was like, this is great. So I'd probably go Rome, LA, New York, Helsinki, Paris. I liked Helsinki a lot too. It's just they're very tight together, all those top 4.
Yeah.
And that's the Paris one was only just far behind.
Yeah.
Those.
I would agree with that. I think these are very respectable lists. There's no wrong answers here.
Unless you're putting like Paris in your number 1.
Yeah, and then like go fuck yourself.
I think it says though a lot about you.
Oh, yeah.
How you rank them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, it responds to you as a person.
And much like, knowing whether you're a passenger or driver, how you rank the 5 vignettes, it's important for your character, the arc of your life.
Yes. And Stuart, you going Helsinki first right out the gate.
That's
You are a
bold.
stoic Finnish.
I mean,
Oh, man.
Jeff can probably answer this, but that makes sense for me.
Yeah, I know it makes a lot of sense for Stuart.
Yeah, I like Helsinki first. I don't know. I like the story.
Stuart likes stories about families, and even though that one's just tangentially a story about a family,
Yeah.
Stuart likes it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I also just like I like that it was Helsinki, Finland. Like it could have been like I like that it was like basically blue hour early in the morning in like a frozen hellscape.
Yes.
I really like the vibes of that.
Stuart, have you seen the Iron Claw yet?
No.
That's the movie that's going to wreck. Stuart's going to be inconsolable for 2 weeks
I
after
have
the Iron
not
Claw.
seen it, but I do know it's basically family.
Yeah.
And you're
It's
a family movie person?
It's
Yeah.
like 4 brothers
Oh, fuck.
and their father, who they have a tough relationship with,
Oh, fuck.
who's pressuring them all into a wrestling dynasty.
Oh, fuck.
It's based on a true story that was deemed too sad that they actually had to make it less sad for the movie.
Yeah.
Because they were like, people won't believe how sad it is
It's
if we
sad.
tell the actual story.
Yes.
Iron Claw.
The Iron Claw.
I'm going to watch it.
And it stars Zac Efron.
Jeremy Allen White.
And Jeremy Allen White. I just want to be with my brothers. That's what it says in the movie. But yeah, Stuart, you'll love that movie. What's the heat check? We all like Night on Earth? We all had a good time?
Yeah.
I enjoyed it. I wish there were more movies made like this.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's
Not all of them. I just wish there were more. It happened more frequently.
Yeah, this is like a very cheap movie that was I think it's like a solid like 7 out of 10. It's not like exceptional, but it's like
Exactly.
a good time at the movies.
Yes.
And then sometimes that's all you really want. You don't want like the steak. Sometimes you just want a hamburger.
Yes.
And this is like a great little hamburger movie with a few vegetables on top.
This
It's like a little lettuce and some tomato that gives you a little nutrient.
I love that.
This is the perfect movie if if you have some anxiety about something in your life and you can't go to sleep and it's 2 a.m. and you're still just nothing's working, put this movie on.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, this is a great 2 a.m. movie.
Yes.
Really great 2 a.m. movie.
Excellent 2 a.m. movie. This movie comes out, premieres at the New York Film Festival in October of '91. It goes on to make about $2 million. I don't know how much the budget was, but I'm imagining it was less than that.
Yeah, it sounds like it probably make it profit.
All the actors probably worked for scale.
Yeah.
And so it's like it's not a success. It's basically like a movie that kind of just comes out and goes. But it's just one of those like art pieces that will just stick around.
Yeah.
It's in the Criterion Collection, so it will always have spine number 401, and that's never going away. And it's just like it's a fun thing to just have out in the world. Is a movie like this, and this is the real joy of this podcast. Is discovering the things like this.
Yeah.
Like, of course, we're going to talk about Edward Scissorhands. We're going to talk about Bram Stoker's Dracula, all these big movies.
Yeah.
But it's fun to just like kind of discover these little gems. But like I
Yeah.
said, it's just a respectable 7 out of 10. It's nothing extraordinary.
Yeah.
But it's just a fun time, and I'm glad that I have seen this movie now.
This would be a 6 out of 10 on noon and 8 out of 10 at 2 a.m.
Yes.
Yeah.
Agreed. I think it's really cool that Winona has taken her career in this sort of direction, dictating, becoming the driver of her own career.
Yeah.
Hey. That was good. All right. But and to that point, Will, I think it's because we are doing a podcast analyzing different people's careers, it's good to draw that comparison.
Yeah.
That like this would not be something John Travolta would do.
Yeah, no,
back
Travolta
then.
would never do this.
He would never do this. Brendan Fraser probably would.
Yes.
I mean, he has.
Question.
But Brendan never like took the initiative for something like this.
What about so basically you have the Pulp Fiction of John Travolta.
Like,
Is that moment? I know he was sought out by Tarantino. Is that moment where he sort of takes a new path?
yeah, that was his big, change, but that only comes because someone essentially makes that decision for him.
He didn't do that of his own volition.
Yeah.
No, he would have just been making like Look Who's Talking 4
Yeah.
and Chains of Gold 2.
Which I know you're probably a little upset about.
Yeah, I'm
'cause
like,
you would like to
give
see
me
those.
Look Who's Talking 4 and we can bring Jordy back for another theme song.
Don't speak.
He's probably
that
like
name.
45 now.
Don't
Have
speak
you
that.
consider that? Jordy's probably like 45 now.
Oh God.
It's like this little kid who does like
yeah,
Christmas
right. Yeah.
If you want to talk about satanic messages in your music, look no further than Jordy.
I have one more question for you guys. Has there been a crossover with all your actors?
We've had a Brendan Travolta crossover.
Okay.
Yes.
In the Poison Rose.
Okay.
Winona will not be crossing over with the previous 2, but we
Okay.
are going to cover 2 movies that our next person who we're looking at would be in.
Would be in. Okay.
Yes.
So it's a preemptive
But
crossover.
we still have like 11 months before we get to the next person.
Yeah.
So it's not like it's an immediate
Such
concern.
vision.
It's not like an immediate concern.
Yeah.
But there will be 2 repeats.
But
in
you're
theory.
covering from a different lens.
Yes.
Totally.
So I'll have to get some Winona experts on the show.
But I think going back to my original claim, Winona has so far proven to be the most like daring in terms of her
Yes.
acting choices.
The fact that she wanted to get out of, she's like, it's not sustainable for me to just play a rebellious teen. I am going to get older, and if I don't put myself into these positions and into these roles, no one's going to do that for me. And that's very, it's very telling of the type of like committed performer she wants to be.
yeah,
Yes.
absolutely.
Yeah, and I that really does it for me. And in regards to Jarmusch, who I just want to quickly, because we won't check back in with him again, but he doesn't work with Winona again, but he goes off and just continues to have a very successful career and has, he's had big movies before this, but like he eventually has Ghost Dog: The Way of the Samurai, which I think is his big, like, really big, like, coming moment to the indie film industry.
Yeah.
And then recently he did The Dead Don't Die, which I don't think anyone saw.
Dead Man also.
Dead Man as well.
Massive in terms of like the art house indie community.
Yeah, and he works, and that's Johnny Depp, who Winona is dating when she makes this movie.
Yeah.
Connection.
So there's these connections. I'm sure she was like, yeah, he was great to work with. Sent Johnny his way.
Yeah.
That's about all I have for Night on Earth. Do we have any final thoughts to say? Stuart, I know you and I got to get going in a few minutes.
I don't think so. I think I've said pretty much my piece.
Will, anything for you?
I feel good as well. I enjoyed it, and I will recommend it to other people.
This was a fun time to talk about. This was a fun movie to watch. Like you said, perfect 2 a.m. movie.
Yeah.
Incredible 2 a.m. The best 2 a.m. movie
Yeah.
that I can recommend from my office.
I can't recommend people watch this in the day.
Yeah, that would be disrespectful to you and the art.
Yeah.
I would just maybe have a request that Jeff, you as Tom Waits, close this out like this is the movie ending.
Stuart, can you?
Do.
Thank you for listening to Travolting Mercedes, Steve Ryders. Next week, get your hand on the sliders. It's a retrospective episode. Get your pen in your abode and tune in. Find us, rate and review.
Sorry, it's the breaths
If you
in
can,
that are.
10 of you.
You're like
Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google, YouTube. Oh, find us on Twitter, Instagram, at Travolting Pod. Travolting Pod at Reddit. Find Jeff on Twitter at Jeff Days.
This isn't working.
This sounds like a car crash.
I'm really locked into it at this point.
All right. Thank you very much. You can
Special
find
thanks
us
to
at
Rebecca
travoltingpod at
Johnson and Michael Van
gmail.com,
Bogen Smith for
at
that graphic
travoltingpod on
theme music.
Instagram. Thank you very much, Rebecca Johnson, for graphic design, Michael Van Bogen Smith for the theme
Ah.
music, which may or may not be taking you out. I haven't decided yet. I might put the other theme music in here. Okay. See you all guys all next week for our retrospective
Right here.
covering Winona's first era, It Girl.
Roll camera A. Roll camera B. Cut.